What's going on, everyone? The market was a little bit choppy today, but we do have some very exciting things to talk about as this Black Friday broke a ton of records and some stocks are booming because of that. On top of that, we do have some good setups to talk about for tomorrow, and we have some interesting stats to look at and why this week might be a pretty crazy one. So we have a great video today. We have a lot of interesting things to talk about, and with that being said, Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, Mike, like you said, that stock market was extremely choppy, and I talked about this in last night's video that we really needed to break this recent high around 455.50 to 456. We need the SPY to get up above here, or else these bulls that have been really driving the market up might start to sell a little bit here in the short term. And I thought today's price action was actually pretty good, and I'll be watching for key supports to be breaking tomorrow, like right around 454 on the SPY. And if we go over to QQQ, I also have big support right around 388. So I'll be waiting for these levels to break. And then I think some puts could start to be a little bit better here in the market. I know that the market's been really flying up a lot lately, but a lot of these tech stocks are starting to come down a little bit. But Mike, it was pretty cool, right? We always talk about Black Friday. We talk about Black Friday numbers. And man, there were a few companies that hit it out of the park. Look at Affirm today, 11.97% to the upside with good Black Friday numbers. Amazon was up a little bit, and even Shopify had a pretty good move here, up 4.8% with this news. So I'm really glad to hear it, Mike. And man, some of these numbers are insane. It's a new record, apparently.
Exactly. So Black Friday hit a record $9.8 billion in sales in just the U.S., which is a 7.5% increase year over year. On top of that, Shopify broke records with their sales up 22% year over year. MasterCard reported great data as well. And between all of these different sites and companies like Shopify and Amazon and all these different companies, there was one group of stocks that really stood out from the rest, and that is these buy now, pay later companies. So you've probably heard about a bunch of them by now, like Affirm, Klarna, and there's like a bunch of other ones, but Affirm's definitely the biggest and the one whose stock really moved the most today. It's ticker symbol AFRM. It's up 12% on the day, and it was up even higher intraday. But yeah, it's booming, and basically a lot of people are resorting to this buy now, pay later type of payment option where it's like, yeah, you might have a $50 purchase on Amazon, and you might break that up into, 4 payments of $15 or $16 each, like, I know it depends, but it's like, I think this shows that the economy is feeling stress in some ways that people might not have originally thought of. But either way, these buy now, pay later stocks are seeing a ton of inflows, and, I'll say this, Affirm stock is not up 12% for no reason today.
Exactly. That was a big day. Now, I'll say this, Affirm stock has some pretty good movement, right? Like, look at their earnings. They had some pretty good moves to the upside, and now they're continuing up off of that with this great Black Friday news. So definitely keep Affirm on the radar. And if we go look at Affirm this year, Mike, they've actually done fantastic from the beginning of the year at their lows to where they are now. It's almost like NVIDIA. It's up like 240%. Not quite to NVIDIA's level, but it's definitely up a lot, but it's getting that key breakout that people love to see, and there is some supports coming up, like maybe around like $40 over the next few days, and then $35 to keep an eye on, but I do love that move, and I'll keep these buy now, pay later companies on the radar. Even Shopify had a pretty good day, and PayPal, I know that those aren't buy now, pay later companies, but they also benefited from the move a little bit. It just wasn't 12%.
Yeah, exactly. So either way, keep a close eye on Affirm going forward. It has a ton of momentum and a ton of volume flowing into it. But Tom, there's also something else that's pretty interesting that I want to talk about, and that is the average S&P 500 performance for the week after Thanksgiving. And we have data going all the way back to 1945, and most of the time the market has like a decent reaction to the week after Thanksgiving. But when the market is red during this week, it tends to be pretty decently red. So just keep that in mind going forward, and I think this is pretty interesting, especially as we have a lot of big tech stocks still pretty overbought.
Yeah, that is a good thing to look at there, Mike. And I am worried a little bit because if we start seeing like Nvidia pull back and then like let's say the big boys, Apple and Microsoft, we're gonna go over these we'll say the S&P 507 in just a little while. So make sure you stick around for that. But for right now, I'll definitely keep my eyes on those tech stocks because if they start falling over with how much weighting that they have in the S&P, oh, it's not going to look good. So let's hope, Mike, that these stocks hold up a little bit better. But honestly, if they start falling, it's going to create some amazing opportunities for put plays. I'm honestly even looking at SQQQ a little bit over the next couple weeks, just watching and waiting for some of these stocks to fall. Because even if you look at the powerhouse Apple or Microsoft, Microsoft just made a new all-time high today. So I can't even believe I'm saying that, Mike. Like a new all-time high on Microsoft today. That's pretty wild.
Yep, it has been on a hell of a run, but as you stated, we are seeing some of these big tech stocks start to turn over, and when we see big tech stocks turn over, the VIX normally shoots up in a pretty strong way, and we are at a very significant seasonal bottom in VIX right now. So for those of you who don't know, VIX basically gauges like risk in the market. When VIX shoots up, it means people are panicking and they're scared and they expect a lot of craziness in the market. But right now, VIX is super low, and we are actually at a point, as we can see on that little red arrow on the chart, where VIX normally bottoms out. Basically, we have data from 2013 all the way to 2022 showing that around this time, VIX has started to uptrend in a pretty strong way. And guess what happens if we see VIX do what it's done on average for like the past 10 years or so? That would mean the market would come down in a pretty nasty way. So looking at VIX right now, it's at a very low level, and seasonally speaking, it normally starts to creep up around this time. So it's just like another thing to keep on your radar going forward, because if we do see the VIX turn up, that will make for a lot of opportunities, especially for options traders.
This is kind of weird, Mike, because yesterday we just talked about seasonality with the overall market. And with the overall market, it generally goes up during this time of the year, the end of the year. During December, it pretty much goes up the whole month. So I'm sitting here, Mike, like wondering, like, how could this be, right? Now, this data only goes back 10 years, right? Did that S&P data went back to 1950, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's really that difference in data points.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if I go out to VIX here, Mike, and I start to look and we go to a daily or a weekly chart, VIX has actually been in these patterns a lot. I've shown it a lot on the videos, a lot on the live streams. And whenever I'm sitting here looking at VIX, it goes through these patterns of like trending down for a while and then getting a nice pop and then trending down for a while and getting a nice pop. I have like 4 different scenarios of this going on right now. And VIX is bouncing right on support, right around $12 to $13 here. So Mike, maybe this will be the time where VIX starts to come up, and it would make a lot of sense, right? Seasonality can be whatever it is. Like the market could seasonally go up every single July, but there might be something bad that happens this July that makes it go down, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking with this this winter here, or this December, is I'm going to really watch the market carefully, because if these big tech stocks like Nvidia and Apple, Microsoft, like we say, start falling over, that VIX should start to shoot up in a pretty good way. And it's just interesting, like you said, another data point that kind of suggests some volatility coming in at this moment.
And that's what options traders should hope and pray for, right? You should want the VIX to be exploding, because that means that it's just a lot easier to make money, especially with short-term trading, because when the VIX is skyrocketing, just the premiums just go through the roof. So that's awesome, and I sure hope that we see a pop-up soon with that. But even if we don't, you know, we will just adjust accordingly. But on a different note, speaking of these big tech stocks, they have been single-handedly carrying the market over the past year. We all know the S&P 500, but have you ever heard about the S&P 7 or the S&P 493? And if you haven't, here we go. So as we can see, the S&P 7, it's weird to say it, is up 80% in 2023, while the S&P 493 is literally flat. Basically what this is saying in English is the top 7 big tech stocks are single-handedly carrying the market, And, when those turn over, it will make a very, very big difference in SPY. So going forward, instead of looking at a bunch of different stocks, keeping an extra close eye on Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, Google, Meta, and maybe Tesla if you want to, because those stocks have been running the show.
Exactly, Mike. This is actually very, very interesting to me because the market would not even be up 10% this whole year right now if it wasn't for these 7 big stocks in the S&P. So that is a big, big sign. And what have we seen all these stocks do lately, right? They've all been exploding. Some have been making new all-time highs like Microsoft. Like you said, Mike, when these start to fall over, we are going to see some pretty bad moves down. And I know a lot of people out there might be like, man, this is a very bearish video, right? But man, whenever you have stocks this overextended, it's just how the market works. If we go back in time, I mean, look at this big run up from 2019 to 2022, right? Look at how there were a couple big pullbacks mixed in, and look what happened when it got way too overextended. We saw that huge pullback of 30%, whatever it was, right? And then the overall market ended up dipping a lot that time too. So I'm watching it so closely, Mike, because the QQQ is actually almost double topping at its all-time high. It's getting very, very close within 10 points. And the SPY is also very close within about 20 points. So I'll be keeping an eye on these. If we do see a double top start to form on these daily charts, and the market starts pulling back, just don't be surprised, guys, and start to look at some of those maybe hedges out there to protect your account if we do start to see that pullback come in.
I smell some opportunity coming, Tom. It's close, and especially if this pullback happens, it should be pretty awesome. So with that being said, let's start to get into some setups for tomorrow. And one stock I'm watching very closely is Meta, and it is to the downside. So Meta, again, it's one of those big tech stocks that has just ran up a little bit too much too quickly, and it's already starting to roll over. I'm looking at Meta to the downside. I think there's a good shot that we could see this one pull back a decent amount this week, and I wouldn't even be surprised if it retested that 320, maybe that 327 level, depending on how the momentum is. But either way, I have Meta on close watch.
Yeah, me too. I love it how it's sitting here at support. And if that support starts to give out, that's going to be really, really good for my next play, which is SQQQ. So I'm actually watching SQQQ to the upside here because I'm watching Microsoft, Apple, Meta, all these stocks. And I'm just thinking that I don't think that there's too much more, fuel in the tank. So I'll be watching SQQQ. For anyone who doesn't know this inverses the QQQ. So if we do see those big tech stocks turn over, this should start to move up pretty well. You could also look at UVXY if you wanted to maybe make a play on VIX. I know we talked a lot about VIX a little while ago, and SQQQ and UVXY they won't do exactly the same thing, but generally if the market's falling, those two will be moving up.
All right, sounds great. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is something that our frequent viewers can probably guess, and it is GLD. So I've been talking about SLV and GLD so much lately. Basically, they're gold and silver, and they've been on a fantastic uptrend, not only over the past couple weeks, but honestly, ever since the beginning of October, and I'm still bullish on them going forward. I am looking at GLD to the upside. It's starting to move with some good momentum. It had a decent update today, but nothing too crazy to the point where it's overextended. One thing worth noting is that GLD and SLV don't have crazy 20% up and down days. They're more of a consistent, a little bit more of slower moving plays, but that's not said in a bad way at all. A lot of times these can actually be easier to trade than some crazy big tech stocks like Tesla or Nvidia or stuff like that. But either way, I like the risk reward going forward to the upside with GLD and SLV.
I really like it too. It's awesome to see them popping off the way they are. And I saw that GLD is sitting right around 185, 186 right now. If we go to GC, which is gold futures, gold is actually back above 2,000 an ounce again. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and it's holding well above there, even into close. So I love it, Mike. I'll be watching GLD tomorrow. as well. And I'm actually going with a bit of an outlier here, guys. And you won't hear me mention this stock too often, but it's Ford, actually. And I'm looking at this one for a longer-term pickup with shares. Now, I think that Ford might still go down a little bit in the short term, but given how low they are right now, I'm going to start to look to make a longer-term position on Ford. I think that they'll do a little bit better in the EV space as that gets going, but I'm just watching it as it dips down for like a longer-term type of buy. And the reason why I picked this one is it doesn't really follow the market. Look at that weak correlation to the SPY. Like that's an awful correlation. Whereas we go to something like Microsoft and, the correlation is like almost as strong as it could get. So I'm watching Ford, and I will be watching it for shares back to the upside. It's definitely a longer-term play, though. Like, this stock generally does nothing, and honestly, it's been pretty bad the past couple years or the past year. So I'm really waiting for that recovery to come in, and it will take a while, probably.
Alrighty. Well, with that being said, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. And with the first one, we have Apple to the downside.
AAPL, yeah, it actually bounced off that support today. So I'm watching 189 right around that low of day. If it breaks under 189, then look at puts, but make that break, because if this support holds and the market magically keeps going, then, you obviously can't just play puts then, but watch that support, because if these give out, there's a lot of opportunities out there, even on other stocks.
All right. With the next one, we have AMD also to the downside.
Yeah, and what I like about AMD is it's up quite a bit today, and it's rejecting like right at this key resistance at 123.50. So if they fall back under 121.50, then go ahead and look at puts. That's the low of pre-market the past couple days, and I think if we break under there, we'll see a bigger sell-off down to 120 or possibly lower.
Perfect. And then with the last one, we have Tesla for both directions.
Tessie, yeah, they were pretty slow today and the past couple weeks. They've just been chopping around. So if they break under 230, which is a huge support that I've been eyeing up on them, then look at puts. It's almost like the big support on Microsoft and Apple. So watch that support to the downside. Now, if they end up running up above 240, then eye up some calls. That 240 resistance will be pretty big. And if they break that, I think they could get to 243 or 244. But let's be realistic, Mike. I think we're both probably leaning to the downside on this one.
True. All right. Well, we have that downside level for Tesla. We have the upside level as well. We are only considering this for a play if it breaks those levels. If it breaks below the downside one, we're looking at it for puts. And if it breaks above the upside one, we're watching it for calls. And then don't forget about AMD and Apple with their downside levels as well. Again, these are plays only if they break the levels Tom listed. But with that being said, Tom, let's jump right into today's big money trade of the day. And we are looking at ticker symbol GLD. Who would have thought, right? But GLD basically had an $889,000 call trade with them into the 192 strike calls for January 5th of 2024. So these call options have a couple months to them. They are slightly out of the money, and overall GLD is trending in a great direction. So I'm a fan of the setup. I think the expiration's good. It never hurts to get a little bit closer to the money, as with any other setup. But either way, I'm pretty bullish on GLD and SLV right now. Really, the main risk with this one is just the strike price. But again, it's not too crazy.
Yeah, that strike is a little bit scary being at 192, but let's say gold comes up and retests its high, then that 192 call will look a lot better probably percentage-wise than a lot of the other ones. So, maybe the big money knows something there, but I really like it, Mike. It's a shorter-term type of play. I would think it's a play that we would hold for about 15 to 20 days maximum. I wouldn't think that we hold this all the way till expiration or anything like that, of course. But I do like the expiration being semi-soon because it means that we might catch this solid uptrend. So I'll be watching for GLD to get up to at least 190 or so in the short term. If we could retest 190, that would be a great run from where we are, in my opinion.
Yeah, so either way, keep a close eye on it going forward. The stock is starting to move with some pretty good momentum, but really, with everything being said right now, I know today was pretty choppy, but the market should get some pretty exciting price action very soon between, everything we're seeing with the seasonal statistics with the S&P 500 movement after Thanksgiving, with the it's beginning to look a lot like VIX-Miss seasonality. On top of that, we have big tech stocks at a very, very, very crucial point. We have a Powell speech later in the week, and we even have more earnings.
Yeah, we do have more earnings, and tomorrow we're going to have CrowdStrike in after hours. So watch ticker symbol CRWD tomorrow. It's not going to be like NVIDIA or anything like that, but it's definitely a pretty big tech stock. So keep your eyes on CrowdStrike. Even HPE or Hewlett-Packard Enterprise will be on my radar as well. And then in after hours on Wednesday, we have Snowflake and Salesforce, which will really be, I think, those bigger moves. And then MRVL even reports Thursday, which is another chip stock. So there's quite a bit here, Mike. You know what does make me sad, though, is the TD Bank reports. And, oh, no, poor Thinkorswim switched over to Charles Schwab now. I feel I just noticed that and was like, oh, I had to mention it in there.
There we go. Well, if you guys are new to the channel and you like our content, make sure to subscribe so you can see our videos recommended to you more often. In every single video, we go over setups, predictions, earnings, important events. We go over charts that you'd never otherwise see, whether it's seasonality charts or other cool market statistics. So definitely make sure to subscribe, but we're excited for the rest of the week. There should be a lot of great opportunities. So thank you all so much for watching. And last but not least, I want to give a giant shout out to today's Discord member of the day, Artemis3234. You've been in the chat for a couple weeks now, and you had some great questions and great activity so far. So make sure to keep it up. And besides that, guys, let's make this week a great one.